Welcome back. This is Eric Magidson again, and we are going to cover part 2 of chapter 1, the nature of information technology projects. Now, where we left off is getting ready to talk about the state of IT project management. And if you notice the Standish Group, I would definitely recommend you spend a little time, do a little research out there. You'll find some things out on YouTube and the web. The Standish Group produced a study of IT project success and failure, and we're going to look at that. Now, if you notice, it says here in general, a successful project is defined as one that is completed on time, within budget, and including all of the features and requirements envisioned. Now, notice that says in general, and the reason why I bring this up is that really a good definition of a successful project? And what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a little smart art graphic here on the side. These are the 3 quote-unquote definitions of the Standish Group as it pertains to IT project management. So we've talked about success. Challenged, the project was eventually delivered, but either over budget, not on time, or not fully completed, meaning that whatever the requirements were, not all of them were met. Okay, and a failure is simply nothing was delivered. Now, we'll look more in detail during this class as to IT projects and why they fail. But here's the thing. I don't necessarily agree with the definition of success. And the reason being, we already know that it's estimated 70% of all IT projects that are taken on still fail today, even though we have people trained in project management, even though we have technology that makes it easier to manage projects, even though we have better electronic communication and a means of recording that communication for historical purposes, such as knowledge management when we do another project. We'll talk more about knowledge management later. But if a project is completed and it delivers, even though it may not be on time, it may be over budget, etc., it still may be successful, and it still may produce the return on investment that the company wants. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times we need to determine post-project completion when we do the audit, the initial audit, as well as the audit, a year from the time the project was initiated, to figure out if we really got what we wanted from a project. Because again, I tend to come back to money. We made a financial investment in the project. By the way, that financial investment was paying people in salaries, giving them benefits, buying a technology, having software available, producing a product that worked for the company. And if all of this happens, and let's say we don't meet our return on investment timeline, but in fact, the project produces a return on investment that thus pays for itself in the case of an optional project. When we talk about required projects, such as technology we have to implement in order to meet government regulation, that may be a complete loss to the company. But on the other hand, we can make that money back by additional projects, features, functionalities that make our business more profitable by either increasing revenue or reducing expenses. Now, why many projects fail? Project failures can be grouped into 4 categories. Of course, people. So the biggest thing I want to say here is that all of the projects that I've worked on, if we didn't have upper management involved in the project. Now, let me talk about what that means. An upper manager may not, a CEO, CFO, whatever, may not be able to actually help with the project, but they need to be in that meeting. They need to be in the room. They're the ones that initiate and promote to people that this project is important to the company, important to the organization. They are the ones that ultimately are paying the bill, if you will. Okay? So it is important to have those people in the room, and also for them to disseminate out to the people that are involved in the project that the project manager is in fact the lead manager. Thus, when it comes to this project, this is the person who is in charge, because a lot of times you'll get people that are technically higher up in the organization than the project manager on a project, and they think they're the ones that should be leading the project, that should be making the decisions. The project manager doesn't necessarily make the decisions, but they're the ones that have to implement the decisions that are made as to what a project is to deliver. Okay, so again, the stakeholders of project, varied roles, interests, whether they're directly or indirectly involved in the project, they need to be considered. If we have a bunch of people that are trying to meet their own goals of their own department and not the overarching goals of the organization, we're going to end up with challenges as it pertains to people. Processes, so includes having a set of project management or project management processes. Here are the key things, and you've heard these terms before, and you're going to hear me talk about them. Who, what, where, when, how, and of course, why. Okay? The quality control, there's the 5 whys in quality control. I think it's the 5 whys. It might be the 4 whys, where we ask a question why, and then we ask a question why of the question why till we get down. So an example of that would be, a company started supplying us with fuel tanks. It was a different company that supplied us than our normal supplier. We ended up having cars that had fuel tank issues. Maybe they exploded. That's the first why, so we know what's going on. But then we get down to it and we figure out, well, the subsequent whys were the fact that we went to that supplier because our other supplier couldn't supply us. So we found a new supplier so that we could produce automobiles, second why, to meet production goals. The third why would be, why are we trying to meet these production goals? Well, we're meeting these production goals because executive management, if they meet production goals, get bonuses. And so consequently, we did this. We went away from our normal supplier who we know supplies quality to this sub-supplier, if you will. We ended up with issues, and it all came down to the fact that we had a bunch of executive managers that were looking to meet these sales goals so that they would get bonuses. So see how what seems like one thing ends up really being another. So that's what we mean by processes. We have to look at how we're going to do the project, what processes we're going to use, and I'll introduce you to some of those later on. So technology, so only 3% of IT projects failures can be attributed to technical challenges. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that 3%, okay? Because if you remember when we talked about Steve Jobs and the iPod, technology didn't exist in order to create the product that he envisioned, okay? So keep that in mind, but this percentage can be increased if, obsolete, unproven, or incompatible technologies are used. Here's the thing. A lot of times we end up building more technology on a foundation of archaic technology. Okay, so consequently, we have a system in place, we've been using it for a decade, and we continue to build on it, and eventually we have a bunch of new technology that's built on old technology. The old technology finally has to be replaced, and now suddenly all of these projects that we did that are integrating data, pulling data, saving data, displaying data to websites, all has to be redone. So we always want to have an organizational view of a project that we do. So of course, organization issues can lead to project failure. Again, a lack of clear direction, a lack of clear leadership, improper strategy, rapidly changing business environment. If we're in technology and we're trying to do a technology project, we are competing against the world today. So if we don't get our product to market before someone else gets a similar product to market, we could literally be shut out of a market. And that's something to consider. Well, the problem with that is we start building technology faster and faster and faster, and maybe we don't deliver what we should. Okay. So that's other challenges. So you can see all these immense challenges that together make it difficult to properly produce a product, a service, a project that is successful. So moving on, people fail. I'm not going to go into this in detail. What I would encourage you to do, pause this slide. Here's more information, why projects fail as it pertains to people, processes, technology, and the organization. Ones that I've experienced, in technology, a lack of skills And what I mean by that is there's so much technology out there that no one can be a generalist on everything anymore. We have cybersecurity, we have cloud computing, we have local networking, we have web, all of the web development, we have cloud, you name it, we have it. We have databases. It is complex. So if we don't have the right people at the right time on the project, we're going to end up with a challenge. And a lot of times companies want to use internal human resources, or human assets as I like to call them, to do a project, in which case if we don't have somebody who is great at database management, especially in the new database technology that we're about to implement, our project may be delayed while that person gets some training. And remember, that just gives them basic skills, not executable knowledge, if you will. Okay, so processes, there they are: technology, obsolete, unproven, incompatible. Incompatible is a huge thing now. I mean, let's talk about all the companies still running Windows 7, and Windows 7 is now gone. Microsoft's not going to support it. Go out and do the research. See how many companies are still leveraging Windows 7 all these years later. And an organization, lack of direction, lack of leadership is, I think, the biggest one. And what I mean by that is, again, executive management, being involved in the project. Okay, so that really is key, that we have that leadership, that we have that support, and that they've disseminated that indeed this project is important. Okay, so go through all of those. Now, as we look at this here, improving likelihood, this is just sort of a summary, again, a value-driven approach, looking at what it is we're trying to produce, what is the value it's going to give to the company. So it's not about the expenses, it's not about the time, it's that we're doing this because it's going to create X, Y, and Z benefit for the company, benefit for the employees. Remember that a lot of times we have to sell this back to the end user who's going to end up using the system. So we want to make sure that that end user is involved in the process, at least a few of them, because they're the ones that are going to go back to the other end users and say, wow, the work we're doing, it's really exciting. It's really going to help you on your job. It's going to provide value to you personally, and then value to the company. Okay, IT must provide value to an organization, of course, except remember, there are projects that we do that aren't going to provide value, that are going to just be needing to be done in order to be in regulatory compliance within our industry, okay, based on government compliance. So keep that in mind as well. Social technology approach, project management approach. We'll be talking about a lot of these in later on. Process and infrastructure, processes, all methodology. We'll talk about that in the next chapter. Expectations, competition. Remember that competition is not only competition with other organizations that are in the same business as us, but internal competition. Who's looking to have their needs met first in the project? Who's looking to make sure that the focus is on marketing versus sales, for example, right? So the marketing folks want one thing, sales wants another, customer support wants another, manufacturing wants yet another, quality control wants another, customer support after product delivery wants yet another, shipping wants another. You see all of these organizations, and we've got to make sure that they're not siloed and that they're not focused on what they need, but on what is best for the organization. Okay. Then there's also the fact of knowledge management. I talked about that. We'll talk more about that. That's where, as we do projects, we learn from projects that we've done. We can learn from successes, and of course, we need to learn from failures. All right. So that's enough for this part. I will catch you in chapter 2. Take care.